Botswana has just done the unthinkable. It banned the export of rough diamonds and unprocessed minerals. The gates are shut, the rules rewritten, and the mining world is on high alert. Why did the African diamond giant make this decision now, and what does it mean for the continent and for the world? It all began with a silent signature at the State House in Botswana. Within just 24 hours, the repercussions were already echoing through mining headquarters in London, diamond exchanges in Antwerp, and copper markets in Shanghai. President Melang Alexandro, flanked by members of the Ministry of Minerals and Energy, declared that Botswana would no longer be a supplier of raw wealth for foreign prosperity. Every gram extracted must be processed, refined, and finished on our soil, he asserted. This was no mere rhetoric. An executive directive halted shipments at airports and border posts. Copper containers and diamond parcels were detained pending proof of internal processing. Mining companies panicked. Some suspended operations, others demanded emergency meetings. Foreign investors scrambled for clarity on the new policies. Behind the diplomacy, Botswana was not bluffing. The prohibition covers rough diamonds, copper concentrates, nickel, and other unrefined minerals. From now on, processing must take place locally through Botswana firms or domestic partnerships. This radical measure strikes at a vital sector. Diamonds account for roughly 30% of GDP and over 80% of the country's export revenue. For decades, stones from mines like Yuaneng and Yorappa were swiftly sent to India for cutting or to Belgium for storage. That model collapsed overnight. Government sources say these controls are only the beginning. A legislative package will solidify this policy for the long term. Companies that fail to adapt could lose their licenses. Those that invest in local processing will receive tax incentives and expedited permits. Although the decision seems sudden, it was months in the making. The president's inner circle studied Africa's failures to capture value from its natural resources, especially in nations still dependent on external processing. The conclusion was clear. Africa cannot continue exporting poverty. Even partners like De Beers acknowledged the gravity of the change. Some operations were paused to reevaluate logistics and in-country value chain integration. The world watches as the World Diamond Council, international markets, and embassies monitor for a potential domino effect. Meanwhile, many concede that Botswana is revealing Africa's true bargaining power. A landlocked nation, small in size but rich in gemstones, has changed the game without sanctions or threats, simply by refusing to play by the old rules. If this is the new game, where value remains in its country of origin, what drives such a drastic, risky shift? Botswana's ban on rough diamonds and unprocessed minerals was born not of ideology, but of pressure mounting to a breaking point: yield to collapse or transform the system radically. In early 2025, the country's economic base, almost entirely reliant on diamonds, began to crumble. Global demand for natural diamonds plunged, cutting prices by more than 40% over 18 months and decimating export revenues. But the warnings came before the crash. A silent revolution was underway in jewelry markets. Lab-grown diamonds, cheaper, chemically identical, and embraced by Gen Z, millennials, and even traditional jewelers, had ceased to be marginal. In centers like New York, London, and Tokyo, natural diamonds lost their cachet as exclusive status symbols. The illusion of eternal scarcity dissolved, exposing Botswana, the world's second-largest producer, to grave risk. Unlike nations with diversified economies, Botswana had staked everything on a single commodity. The public budget, salaries, and investments all depended on De Beers and diamond performance. With sales in freefall, the impact spilled off the spreadsheets. Hospitals delayed purchases, schools froze hiring, rural development funds were slashed. Meanwhile, foreign companies controlled the processing. Stones were sent immediately to India or Belgium, where true profits were made in cutting, polishing, and resale. Botswana retained only a sliver of value, exporting cheap raw wealth only to import products 10 times more expensive. That model endured as long as high prices offset the imbalance. But market collapse made it unsustainable and dangerous. When the Maboko administration took office, it launched an economic review and found that for every $100 generated globally by a Botswanan diamond, the country kept less than 10 in local value. The rest vanished in external processing, transport, branding, and retail. Economists warned if the market continues to fall and Botswana persists in exporting raw materials, the fiscal collapse will be real. That was the turning point. No ideology, no nationalism, necessity. The solution? Break the pattern, stop exporting value, and start capturing it. But that required more than a memorandum. It demanded a radical structural overhaul. The ban was paired with a strategy to rebuild the entire value chain on home soil, from ore to market. The government is drafting legal frameworks, offering incentives for domestic processing, and seeking partners to co-invest in technology, training, and local jobs. Critics highlight the risks, especially amid a market slump, but Maboko's team believes inaction posed the greater peril. Waiting for a global recovery would deepen dependency. Decades of mining had funneled earnings abroad. Now that flow would be interrupted. The crisis made one thing clear: Botswana's wealth must be won and retained at home, or it isn't wealth at all. Yet how could a country with limited infrastructure and scant industry process everything it mines? Could Botswana really build this system from scratch? In the meantime, we invite you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. When Botswana curbed raw material exports, it didn't just reject a system, it announced the birth of another. From the outside, it looked like a shutdown. Within, an industrial engine is starting to roar. Behind shuttered mines and halted shipments, a fully domestic value chain is being built in silence. Botswana's strategy isn't to wait for global prices to rebound, but to turn every gram and kilogram of ore into a catalyst for local transformation. That begins with infrastructure, not roads or ports, but factories, technical schools, and high-tech workshops for every processing stage. The vision is clear. If wealth is to be extracted, every step of the value chain must remain under Botswanan control. By mid-2025, the government launched the National Processing and Beneficiation Program, or NPBP, with nearly $500 million to develop local industry, funded by redirected mining revenues and African development banks. The goal is to build in South Africa the most advanced diamond cutting and copper refineries, not in Europe or Asia. 3 major economic zones are already under construction in Gaborone, near the Yorappa mine, and in Francistown. They'll house polishing laboratories, automated sorting facilities, training centers, and design studios where Botswanan artisans can create brands and export luxury jewelry. It's not just about diamonds. Agreements with South Korea and China enable modular copper and nickel refineries that were once exported for external processing. These facilities will feature state participation to ensure profits circulate locally, with hiring quotas and knowledge transfer mandates. Job creation sits at the core of the plan, replacing an elite-only enrichment model with one that can employ tens of thousands, operators, technicians, managers, and designers. NPBP projects more than 38,000 jobs over the next 5 years if 60% of mineral production is processed domestically. Beyond employment, national pride is at stake. Exporting raw stones to import expensive jewelry is a stigma President Maboko is determined to erase. His administration backs the creation of a national brand for Botswanan diamonds, bypassing De Beers' auction houses, a shift that could redefine African luxury. Skeptics point out that diamond processing demands years of training, sophisticated machinery, and stable energy, challenges Botswana still faces. The government's response? Create the Botswana Industrial Skills Academy to train technicians while investing in solar and hydroelectric power to sustain the new industries. Nothing is guaranteed, Botswana walks a tightrope between ambition and execution. For the first time, the country decides what to do with its minerals, not the world. Yet a looming question remains. How will foreign corporations, especially giants like De Beers, react to this power shift? Can Botswana withstand any counterattack? As tractors break ground on new factories in Gaborone, alarms ring in London, Mumbai, and Tel Aviv. Botswana has decided to stop exporting raw minerals, shattering a global model that for decades kept Africa as a mere supplier and the rest of the world as a processor.
This change hit the bears particularly hard. In joint venture with the Botswanan government through Botswana, it controlled marketing and operations. Now unable to export large volumes of rough stones or rely on local beneficiation partners, De Beers faces squeezed margins, delays, and uncertainty. Mines paused operations to restructure supply chains for domestic processing, freight, insurance, and customs relations. The impact extends beyond diamonds. Copper and other commodity traders face similar hurdles as investors worry Botswana's model might spread to coal, uranium, and rare earths. Leaders in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Namibia are already discussing similar policies. The African Union Commission on Trade and Industry is analyzing the approach, and rumors swirl of a summit to redefine Africa's stance in global mineral markets. Traditional processing hubs like Surat, India, and Antwerp, Belgium, foresee losses. Surat, where 90% of diamonds are cut, warns of job risks. Antwerp expects lower volumes but possible price increases. Yet, Botswana keeps its doors open to foreign investment in local beneficiation, inviting companies to set up factories in-country. Negotiations for joint ventures with the Ministry of Commerce have begun, signaling that the new gold rush is a partnership on new terms. Far from isolationist, Botswana demonstrates that the global economy still needs its minerals, but must play by new rules. The challenge will be sustaining this model. If the transition stalls or infrastructure falters, partners may walk away, jeopardizing ambitions. But if carried through, Botswana could become the first African nation to invert the model, gaining more than mere promises. Historically, real beneficiation in Africa has been costly, politically risky, and requiring long-term national commitment. Few countries have dared. What sets Botswana apart is its government's willingness to endure short-term turbulence, revenue drops, renegotiations, and workforce retraining for a qualified industry. This transformation is a real sacrifice, not just rhetoric. The new model is about controlling prices, supply chains, labor markets, and resource use to build its own future, not others. If successful, Botswana could emerge as a manufacturing and branding powerhouse. Imagine luxury jewelry made in Botswana, copper wire refined in Botswana. That would bring pride, expertise, and economic strength, while stabilizing revenues, diversifying exports, and shielding against external shocks. Other nations watch and ask, if Botswana can, why not us? The risks remain. Companies could seek cheaper alternatives, infrastructure might lag, and political will could waver. Yet the commitment appears steadfast. Botswana is not merely reacting to a crisis, it is constructing a new African economy where value is created and retained at home. It is a narrative war, a small nation telling the world it is no longer an empty reservoir to be drained, but a force to be respected. If that message spreads, Africa may break old chains, not through protest, but through production. Should all of Africa follow suit? Can the continent grow wealthy if it continues letting others process its riches? Share your thoughts in the comments. Want more videos like this? Subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. Here we speak what no one else does: Black culture, civilization, history, and the brilliance of Black people.